Thank you, Tamiko. We begin tonight's regional news with a story from Antigua. The brother of Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Browne has been found guilty of raping a 13-year-old girl after a week-long trial. Reports indicate that Addison Browne, 43, in April 2019, tied up the teen, trapped her in his vehicle that was parked under a tree, and raped her. The teen told the courtroom that Browne was no stranger to her and she knew him as a bus driver. She stated that on the day of the incident, she along with her aunt and the accused were giving them an experience to the city. Nevertheless, her aunt realized she had misplaced her cell phone and requested that he take her back to the location. She thought she misplaced it. The 13-year-old also told police she was drowsy due to the medicine that was prescribed for her after an unrelated accident and fell asleep. She later woke up and saw her arms and feet tied with rope. The accused then took off her underwear and performed sexual activities with her. Browne was arrested after the woman informed her mother about the incident, and he scheduled to return to court for sentencing on July 15. Turning our attention to Trinidad and Tobago. Police are currently investigating a double homicide at St. Mary's Village, Moruga, Trinidad on Wednesday at about 4:40 p.m. The victims have been identified as 35-year-old Sarita Dursaran and her 44-year-old boyfriend Nigel Chance. Police said they were downstairs in the kitchen area when an AD wagon drove into the yard and several explosions were heard. The Dursaran's father, who lives next door, ran to the couple's home after hearing the explosions and saw them bleeding from gunshot wounds. They were taken to a nearby medical institution and were pronounced dead. 3 months ago, the Dursaran survived a hit on her life after gunmen opened fire on her while she was driving. And finally, police have found human remains in their search for British journalist Dom Phillips and Brazilian indigenous expert Bruno Pereira after a suspect confessed to killing them in the Amazon forest. The suspect, a fisherman who had clashed with Pereira over his efforts to combat illegal fishing in indigenous territory, led police to a remote burial site where the remains were discovered. The news marks a grim conclusion to the case that has raised global alarm hanging over President Jair Bolsonaro at a regional summit and stirring concern in the British Parliament. Phillips, a freelance reporter who has written for The Guardian and The Washington Post, was doing research for a book on the trip with Pereira, a former head of isolated and recently contacted tribes at Federal Indigenous Affairs Agency, FONAI. They were in a remote jungle area near the border with Colombia and Peru, which is home to the world's largest number of uncontacted indigenous people. The region has been invaded by illegal fishermen, hunters, loggers, and miners, and police call it a key route for drug trafficking. Police had previously identified their primary suspect as fisherman Amareldo de Costa, who was arrested last week on weapons charges. That's a wrap on tonight's regional news. I'm Joel Vogt. Back to you, Tamiko.